Oh, I see it.
Rock and roll.
All righty. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Intergalactic Newsdesk. I'm your host, Mark Von Olen, and I'm here with Gary O'Toole. Gary, how are you doing? I know you've been traveling quite a bit.
How are you, buddy? Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of weeks here. We've had a Dublin Comic Con and a private screening of a Star Wars fan film, which we were involved with. So
Nice.
it's nice to be back to the land of the living. And of course, we're just 2 weeks out from the big event.
2 weeks. I can't believe it. I'm not even going, and I can't believe it. The work has not stopped. I've also been traveling. If so, for anyone who may have wondered what happened on Rebels Revisited for the past 2 weeks, last week I was intentionally not there because I had scheduled some vacation time, and Ashley brought on a guest co-host, Jamie, who was fantastic, and they did an awesome Women of Star Wars show. If you guys haven't seen that yet, definitely go back and watch. But the prior week before that, I got stuck. My flight was canceled, and then I was flying when the show was happening. So I was trying to like watch on the Wi-Fi from the airport. And luckily the boys filled in to help Ashley run the show on that day. But all of a sudden it looked like I was like not there on Rebels, but I'm back. And we have a great show coming on Rebels this Monday too that we'll talk about later. So I get you with the travel and the constantly being pulled in so many different directions. It is wild right now. And then with 2 weeks out to Celebration, I'm sure everyone is going through like their last minute stuff, getting ready. Do you feel ready I know you're not traveling as far as everyone, but are you like good to go for London?
Yeah, I think we're essentially good to go, apart from one or two loose ends, and we still have some prizes coming in for Boonta Eve. I think the guy behind the scenes there seemed to like the Castle Vader skull, which we got to show off in all its glory. So sort of as set as can be. It'll be interesting to see this as being the first proper travel since the pandemic is
Mm,
over. But
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what's like Celebration returning to London for the first time since 2016. So it's
Yeah, it's
always a
been a
new
minute.
experience. There's always something new. So it'll be interesting to see how things go.
Yeah. I keep an ear to the ground on all the Star Wars discourse, and already people are complaining about the lines might be too long, or the lottery system for this, or how do I schedule that? And I think that's where we can come in and help. I think that this community, which by the way just hit 48,000
Woo!
fan members. So thank you everyone for joining and telling your friends. The first rule of Virtual Cantina is to tell everyone about Virtual Cantina. Tell them to join, and meet up with people in the chat and everything. There's some great tips and tricks and people to connect with, to help you feel less stressed about the trip, get you prepared, maybe find some buddies to go watch some things with. We're going to spend most of this show talking about the upcoming panels. And while I know it's largely lottery based, it's also not like seat number based. And my understanding is you get into the panel, but you can kind of sit where you want. So you can go with your crew, and take up space together and record and do whatever else. So I think that that'll be nice to like share those experiences with each other.
Yeah, and two things that have sort of popped up in the previous week as well is that the app is now fully up and running. So make that your best friend, because it will have absolutely
Mm,
everything that you need on it for the event. But also, we know so many people have had questions about delays with their tickets being sent out and things of that nature. Unfortunately, when it comes to conventions of this magnitude, that is something that is all too common. It happens that tickets can be delayed being sent out, but for those of you who it is your first celebration, this is something we've experienced down the line
mhm.
many times. But your tickets will get to you, but if they don't, rest assured, just have your barcode and your relevant ID, and when you go to will call, you will be able to get replacement badges, and you will get in. So please don't be worrying and stressing about that. the
Yeah.
the help at will call is always there, and they are genuinely lovely, so don't be worrying too much about that.
And I got to tell you, even though I was a vendor, I had to go into like the regular person line for something at Celebration last year. And it moved very quickly and they were super helpful. I couldn't believe it. I was actually really worried that I would die in a customer service line. And instead, they were super well organized and well staffed. I just needed to pick something up and I was kind of in and out. So if you are stressed about that, like Gary said, have your QR code, your email. I'm also like one of those weird tactical people where I'll print stuff
Print
like that
everything out.
just
Yeah.
to have it as like backup. I want it on my phone in the app and I screenshot it. So I've got the photo and I've got the printout. It is MapQuest 1996 over here in my car. So like, I think that because you never know what's not going to work. The Wi-Fi in the convention center is terrible. Like, what if you have an issue with your phone? What if you drop your phone? What if you lose your phone? Like, you want to have all those backups ready. So that's how I help reduce my anxiety about these things is like getting that ready. Get yourself one of those big folders. We talked about that, I think, on the prior show, one of those big accordion folders. Just put your printouts in there for all of your actual tickets, the photo ops you bought, the autographs at the whatever else. If you're lucky enough to get into the store, which I think that was a lot of the discourse on Friday, right? Like people can't get into the store.
Yeah, and I'm surprised at the system. Apparently, some people were able to get multiple slots on on different days. So I don't see why they couldn't just do everything under the one code. You know, if you ordered 4 sets of tickets, that one barcode did you for the 4 people in your party. I don't
Yeah.
understand it at all. I think it caused just unnecessary stress, and unfortunately, as bad as the Lightspeed lane was for the store, the Funko store is just going to be an entirely new level of chaos entirely.
Yeah. Look, there are a lot of vendors going to the show. My recommendation is if you know something is available online, as opposed to, only available in stock, like at the show, buy it online. Like, don't waste your time in those lines at any vendor. And by the way, I'm going to be there, or not me, but my company will be there. All of our stuff is through the website. We'd love for you to come by and see all the stuff. We're not going to have the type of line that a Funko will have for sure, or the Celebration store itself. And I know everyone wants that sort of shopping experience, but if you can visit the website and buy your stuff ahead of time, I would recommend doing that. That way you can actually walk the floor and check out like the smaller scale vendors. You'd be amazed at how many licensees exist in the Star Wars space that you're probably not even aware of. I was walking around San Diego Comic-Con and like the little Lucasfilm pavilion thing, and they had like a jewelry manufacturer who specialized in like plastic rings that like don't crack. I'd never seen these before. It's like, you guys knew? And they had a whole thing with like, I love you, I know, as the 2 sets of rings. And I was like, oh, that's cute. So like I had they were new to me. So I was like, that's really neat. I'll take a business card. So I think those are sort of the hidden gems as you walk around when you don't want to end up in these like all day line kind of things.
And hidden gems is something of which you mentioned. So do
Mm.
you want to talk about what we're referring to with respect to when we mention hidden gems?
Yeah, there's actually, we're using it in a few ways. So every Sunday, there's stuff happening on the VCN where we're releasing some celebration hidden gems on the Facebook page. So everyone be sure to check that out. And then we're also going to be talking about what I think our hidden gems are in the panel list today. So we're going to go through all the panels, not super in depth, but give you guys like a very top line of everything that's happening on the celebration main stage. And then we're going to pick some of our favorites, and we'll talk about like our main pick for the Twin Suns stage, as well as what we think like the hidden gem panel is in the list. And then we're going to get into all of the fan podcasts, which Gary is present. Got a point. I can't point correctly. Gary is going to be presenting. Blob of the Hut will be there live, which is very exciting. So we're going to get into all of that main stage, hidden gems, and all of the fan sites who are presenting at Celebration, which is very exciting.
We have our first question of the night as well. Leon wants to know, do smaller panel guests sign after the panels for the fans?
Smaller panel guests, you mean like the actual podcasters
Fan
themselves?
panels, or
like for example, if it I know in the past at other celebrations, if like Doug Chang or any of the creators were like in offshoot rooms doing a small panel, there has been some people who have actually gone up to, that little high rise, it's not really a stage, to, get an autograph. So he just wanted to know if there's opportunities outside of like going to the creator stages that are not on the main stage to get autographs.
I'm not 100% sure.
No,
I
the
think
only time. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was it's just me. I said the only time I ever experienced that was if you were walking by, say, a security gate where someone transfers from one end of the building to the other, and there's a gap. If you see somebody, I've seen somebody wave and they've come out and signed. But in terms of actually in the panel, the main panels themselves, no.
But the smaller panels, like in the offshoot rooms, if there's like a Doug Chang, you think he'll sign?
I think in those small rooms you have a much better shot, because in the big rooms, one, it's a tall stage and security is not going to really let you get close, and they're going to sort of usher people away. But in the small rooms, and I'm thinking less of a Doug Chang and more of like a podcaster you might think is famous in your mind. Like, what if you're a big fan of Gary, actually? Like if you're a huge fan of Blob of the Hut and you want to get a photo with him, Gary will stick around and take a photo with you probably, right? Depending on your schedule. I think that's true for any, and you had a guest on the show who was like a voice actor for a show, and he was there and people wanted pictures or autographs with him. Like, that could happen as long as they don't charge money, because that would be in violation of like the Celebration PR terms, because there's an autograph hall. So they couldn't do anything monetized. And I believe that's true at all the vendor booths as well, unless they have a special permission thing. Like sometimes the comic creators are allowed to be at booths and sign autographs and charge, but there's a very specific slice for that. I would not count on that. I would say if you want to bring something and hope that a Doug Chang or a Gary will do a selfie with you or sign something, like you can have something ready, but I think it's low probability, frankly.
Excellent, thank you.
Hate to burst your bubble on that one. I do think you have a better chance of like just walking around the floor and seeing people, and if they're not wearing a mask or something, and just asking for a selfie. And selfies are easier than autographs, honestly. And I'd rather that. I'd rather get a picture with someone.
Also a real outside chance as well, depending on what hotel you're staying in, you could get lucky.
Yep. People at the bar, people at the restaurant. Also, don't follow people back to their hotel. They will call security on you. Like, no joke. We definitely like in 2019, people identified certain entrances and drop-offs and whatnot, and we had to set up additional security there, and that wasn't pleasant. I'll leave it at that. So find make sure there are boundaries. You know, if you want an autograph from someone, there's like, what is it, 30 of them who are going to be signing in the autograph hall. Pay the money and go. Like, that would be my thing. That would be my recommendation, not just because I used to do that.
Right. Rock and roll.
Yep. Okay. Let's jump into these panels. So like I said, we're not covering every single panel. There's so many, and there's so many stages, and there's so many small rooms. We want to talk a little bit about the ones on the Celebration main stage, because we think this is where the biggest news is going to come from. And everything on the Celebration main stage is also going to be streamed to the Twin Sun stage and the Galaxy stage. So this means that this is the big news beat that Lucasfilm doesn't want you to miss. I also think they'll figure out how to put these online in some portion. And obviously there's going to be hundreds of people, if not thousands, in the room who are going to be live tweeting, probably filming, except when they're not permitted to film. You know, sometimes you have to put your phone in one of those bags or something, if there's something super secretive. But I think these are the big news pushes that they're going to want the news getting out there more so than trying to keep something confidential. Don't you think, Gary?
Yeah, speaking of somebody who was there for the Rogue One reveals, you know, that was quite an experience. But yeah, it will definitely find its way out in some shape or form. But it does broadcast to the Twin Suns and Galaxy stages. So if you don't get into the main stage, don't be too disheartened, because everything that they get to see, you will get to see. But like you're saying, Mark, hasn't there been talk of all the panels potentially being streamed elsewhere? I know there was potentially talk of that for even the fancast stages. So if that's going to happen, then there's no reason why maybe the main stages won't be broadcast out live in some shape or form.
I think they'll eventually do it, especially with COVID and all of everything that happened during COVID was like, let's make things accessible as possible. And for them to sort of pull back on that isn't really fair. So, and that's how people are feeling about most conventions now. I'm finding more and more YouTube has live streams of conventions, of panels at most conventions, which is great. Especially when it's like, I can't afford to be on the road 50 weeks a year going to every single convention. Like WonderCon is this weekend. I would love to be there, but I don't have time for that or money for that. So, but I would like to know what the big news beats are. And I think Lucasfilm would be smart to get this information out there, especially knowing that like there isn't a movie coming, right? Or if there is, like, we better all hear about it, because we've been asking for a while. The last news I heard was that they were canceling projects. That's not good. So they need a positive news beat in a big way. And actually, I think the place we're going to get it is this first panel. So we're going to go chronologically through the Celebration main stage, and take you through like what the description says, and then what we expect to get out of this panel. So the very first one, this is Friday, April 7th, the first day of the show, 11 a.m. And good luck, there's no one getting, not everyone's going to be in by 11 a.m. Like, these doors open slowly and poorly. That's every year. So 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Here's the description. Star Wars Celebration returns, launching with a must-see showcase that will kick the weekend's festivities into hyperdrive. Lucasfilm's current crop of live-action filmmakers will be joined by special guests to discuss the many current and upcoming Star Wars adventures, including The Mandalorian, Andor, and more. So live-action filmmakers, that means directors of the TV show, right? Because there are no movies.
Well, there's long been rumors that there may be something coming from the big screen, but as you said, of news during the week that it seems more that projects are either being cancelled or put on the back burner as opposed to being announced. But there's always at least one surprise and twist and turn in these type of panels, which is to be expected. But also, they stay current crop of live action filmmakers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's somebody working on films right now. It could be people with on the staff who have previously worked on films and are there. It's not really specific and giving much away. But in terms of the first big announcements, you can probably bet your life that this week will be the one that kicks things off with a bang.
And I think great way to start the weekend would be to say, we do have a new live action movie coming, like confirm the Taika Waititi drop date, or we are doing the Rian Johnson trilogy, or something's they need to tell us something, and I think it needs to be beyond another streaming series. We already have, they should confirm when Ahsoka is going to happen and when Skeleton Crew is going to happen, but I think they'll save some of those for like the Ahsoka panel, which is actually later that day. So I think we'll get dates for those types of things like in the specific panels. But yeah, I feel like there needs to be something gigantic in this panel.
I would agree, but I'm also thinking from a movie perspective, after all the chopping and changing and all the stuff that's been going on, if they are going to make announcements on the big screen, they have to get it right this time.
I agree with that.
They have to get it right.
I wonder too, I'd love to understand everyone's thoughts in the chat. Like, I'm not married to the idea of a trilogy. I don't need a trilogy. I don't need a series of films. Like, I was talking about the DC slate, and one of my friends was like, I love that Joker movie. I was like, and he doesn't care about like the way it connects to the larger universe or what it means. And he's like, I know they're getting that weird sequel with Lady Gaga, which, by the way, I saw a picture of her yesterday. I was like, this looks insane. I'm so in. This is going to be so bonkers. Can we have that? Can we do that in Star Wars or even in Marvel? Like, just give me something weird and interesting that's a standalone that doesn't connect to the larger web. And just make it great. Like, I think that they need to do more of that as opposed to this constant world building, because then it just does feel like everything is a piece of something as opposed to its own whole thing, right?
Well, technically, if we're thinking about it, if the Ahsoka show does give us the world between worlds, then technically whatever they want to do, whether it's time travel, jumping to let's call it maybe a multiverse in a galaxy far, far away, it's not terribly outside the realm of possibility if they could do it right. So maybe that will open up new avenues like that, but that would be something that they would need to plan for in ridiculously intricate detail, because I can't imagine the fandom being too happy if they went down that route and it didn't work out.
I think that the Ahsoka show has the potential to be like the what if of the Star Wars universe if it is a world between worlds. And at that point, then it's multiple seasons. You can kind of do whatever. You can cast different people in the roles. And like, it would be super fun. And could it just be fun? Like, I was having that same conversation about Galaxy's Edge, how they're like trying to shoehorn in like Fennec Shand and Boba and whoever else. And I was like, can we please just put Luke and Leia and Han? Like, just put them in there. I don't care that it doesn't make sense. Like, just go have fun. And I think that's what Star Wars is missing right now, is the fun aspect. Like, it takes itself very seriously. And it always has. Marvel, at least, like, they're still silly and stupid when they want to be. Like, Ant-Man's the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and I kind of loved it. Like, I don't care. Like, it was great. I left and I was like, that was terrific. More of that weirdness. Like, and I know it wasn't for everyone. I haven't seen Shazam yet. I heard Shazam is also dumb and fun. Like, it can just be that. It's a comic book movie. Like, I'm not looking for Oscar bait. Like, there are other serious, smart, interesting movies that I loved, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is also a little bit silly and weird. But like, I'm not going to Star Wars for that, and I'm not going to Marvel or DC for any of that. So I think that we could just have a little bit of fun with our content.
We need to remember that they're movies. They're not real. It's
it's not a documentary. We're not solving murders. We're not curing cancer. We're having fun with lightsabers, which I don't know where mine is, by the way. The cleaning has led to a dirtier house. And I don't know if you guys have all experienced this. We're doing like a ton of cleaning, and it's the kind of thing where like now it looks like a hurricane hit. But yeah, so I think that this panel will set the tone for the whole weekend. And I think there will also be a million voices screaming out in agony, right? Like, because they're not going to get whatever live action movie they wanted regardless. And then they're going to take that with them all weekend, and we're never going to hear the end of it. So I'm already prepared that like Friday at 11 a.m., which, by the way, that 11 a.m. is England time. So it will be very early when the East Coasters and the West Coasters wake up. The bomb will have already dropped. Like, so you need to wake up really early, 5 hours for East Coast, 8 hours for West Coast. You need to be up to experience that. So plan your day accordingly. 11 a.m. Eastern doesn't get you anywhere. You've already missed the whole show. Like, you need to be up 5 hours early in order to see this and see what happened if you want to stay in the know. Otherwise, it'll be ruined on Twitter. You'll find out that like something's happening or the thing you wanted didn't happen. So I'm going to be up super early that day, obviously.
And there's going to be a lot of fans that panel will set the tone for the entire weekend for them, no matter what.
Yep. Oh, without a doubt. Which then brings us into later in the day. Andor season 1. This is a making of panel. This is also on the celebration stage, streaming to Twin Suns and Galaxy, and all of these panels will stream to Twin Suns and Galaxy, and we'll probably see all of it online as well. Tony Gilroy and Diego Luna and their teams of creatives recount the making of the epic first season of Star Wars Andor. I can't imagine they will not also tell us what's going to happen in season two.
Yeah,
I also can't imagine they're not going to bring out some other special guests and maybe even announce a new addition to the cast. They usually do things like that. So while I think this is a look back, there's no way it's not promotion for the next season, which my understanding is in 2025, not in 2024. I don't know how true that is, but I am excited about Andor. I loved Andor. I thought it was such a breath of fresh air in all things Star Wars. So like, funny enough, I'm just saying I want stuff to be less serious. It's actually really, it's as serious as a heart attack, that show, but in a way that's like very different than the rest of the content. I loved Andor. You loved Andor too, right? Like,
yeah, I loved I
Yeah.
adored Andor. Andor was phenomenal. And I think with season 2, maybe we're looking at it a little bit too thoroughly, but if ever there was going to be a K2 announcement.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, bring
for
out
an
Alan.
Introduction, it would have to be.
Yeah.
It would have
Put
to
him on
be
the stilts,
this, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Alan's terrific. I've met him several times.
Lovely
I brought
guy.
him to Celebration as a guest. Like, he's just super nice, and everyone seems to love him. He's sort of universally beloved. Like, I've never heard anyone say a bad thing about Alan Tudyk. And if you know something bad about him, don't you dare put it in the comments. I will not be ruined. He's terrific, and I like to keep it that way. I think he'd be great to, K2SO is such a beloved droid. And he's fun, and he could add a little bit of humor and levity to what is otherwise the most serious show in the slate. We also know that Denise Go is attending the show as an autograph guest. She'll be in the autograph hall and photo op hall. I can't imagine they don't drag her out, because she's obviously going to be, I think she's almost like the Grand Admiral Thrawn of season 2. Like, she's the big Imperial bad, and she's going to have to conflict with Andor. Like, they missed each other by this much in season 1. They have to throw down. Right.
There's going to have to be. There is only going to be 2 seasons, so they have to end it with a bang. So that seems the most likely avenue to go down. The one hope that I have for season 2 is the formula in season 1 worked. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't try to do anything too drastically different. Stick with what worked and build on it. So, but I do think that will be one of the most sought after panels at Celebration for sure.
I agree because it's so different than the rest of the content, and people are really excited about season 2. I know the ratings weren't as strong as some of the other things, but the reviews were across the board spectacular, and everyone loved the acting and the serious world building that was happening. And we know season 2, it almost feels like they've compressed seasons 2, 3, and what would have been season 4 into just season 2, because there's going to be multiple time jumps. Like, imagine Deirdre Miro as like a Moff or something, as opposed to like high level ISB, like up there, like really up there. While then Cassian is moving up the chain on the rebellion side. I want to see more Mon Mothma. I want to see Genevieve pop in and wave, and let's get her speech in live action, the one that we saw in Rebels of her becoming public enemy #1 and all of that. I would love to see all of that in season 2.
The big curiosity for me is how much of a gap will there be between season 1 endpoint and season 2 start?
Yeah.
There's
it's
not
hard
a
to follow
lot
the
of room to
timeline.
maneuver.
And we also know it has to end right at Rogue One time. They said they're going to pass the ball directly to Rogue One. There's a long way to go. Like Cassian Andor's character right now is not the Andor we meet in Rogue One at all. So we've got a lot to do in probably 12 episodes. So
we need Fiona Shaw to do her speech on stage, but not say "fight the Empire."
I'm sure that she's under some type of incremental NDA because of that. I'm like, hey girl, we revised this line. The fandom's going to go crazy. Please sign this. Please don't say this. I can't imagine they're going to ever let her say F the Empire for real. Like, You know, like even signing autographs, I'm sure, you know what, because it's Disney.
Well, you got they're bringing Deadpool in, so it's also Disney.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they handle anything R-rated and adult, especially if the rumors are true that Hulu is going to be going away. You know, like as we've talked about, Disney's Investor Day, and they just announced this the other day, 7,000 layoffs are happening in the month of April-ish. And I think it's largely coming from Hulu and 20th Century and whatever else, because those were the things that didn't quite work for them. I don't know. I don't have an insider track to what's happening there, but how you then handle the more adult content. Like, is Hulu still relevant for them? If you don't have a place for Deadpool 3, like if it's an MCU movie, but you can't put it on Disney Plus unless you age restrict it, like where does this live? I don't know. Those are questions not for me, but these are the things I think about. And will they continue in that space then? Is R-rated or adult content something that they as a brand could focus on?
I think another consideration is how just much longer is Iger going to be there, because
not long. We're already 6 months in, right? Yeah. So he's said that his number one thing is to pick his replacement, because he's supposed to be out in 2 years. Like that, it's a temporary contract. I don't know who's next. I remember reading the short list and none of those names popped for me. And I, in a way that like I didn't immediately know who they were. Like I knew who Bob Chapek was. Like when he took over, I was like, oh, I know that name. I didn't recognize the other names on the list. And I don't know if that's just because I'm like less connected to that than I used to be. But I'm sure they're going to pick someone great. Who knows? Maybe they'll bring someone from the outside. I wouldn't be surprised if
something like the chief financial officer or someone like that, someone who's already been in charge of the purse strings and knows the business inside out.
Can I be that guy to say that CFOs should never become CEOs? No, seriously. Like I think that CFO is the top of where a CFO should live. And maybe they'll go to the board eventually, but like you shouldn't run the whole company, because it always becomes a numbers game. And we've seen it happen with various other companies that when the CFOs are put in charge, the growth stops, and the creativity stops. The bottom line gets better, but then the long-term mission of the company gets upended for profitability. And then before you know it, it's a different company. And then sometimes you sell things off. And then before you know it, you're a whole other company. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know who the current CFO is. I have nothing against him. I don't know who he is, but I would prefer in general to have the CEO coming from some type of the business side, maybe the marketing side, maybe more the creative side. And then you surround yourself with people, like if you're a creative, someone else can, you still have to know a P&L, but someone else can really run those numbers. But like you need to have a creative vision to run the company and a people first vision. I think that's the way it has to be run, is my thought. Who's Rebecca Campbell? Anyone know who that is? Because Brian is saying she's going to be the next CEO. I'll Google her after this.
I wonder, that could actually be the CFO. I think the CFO is
that her?
Could be, yeah. Could actually be the name. Is
okay. I have no insider knowledge. I don't know if they're going to put a CFO in charge, when I think I know internally they're dealing with revenue and expenses and profitability issues, but I also think from an external perspective, like I've seen people say the magic's gone. How do you recapture that? I don't think you get that back by putting a numbers person in charge. It sends the wrong message, I think.
Well, I've just Googled it there, and that's not that's not who the CFO is. So, but apparently she is the CFO was called Christine McCarthy, and she is apparently the favorite.
Okay, we'll see. I'm curious to see how it all plays out. I have no say. I have no horse in this race. All I want the studios to be successful, and that's across the board. DC, WB, Viacom, Peacock, everyone, like, because as you saw what happened with HBO Max, HGTV, these mergers and acquisitions and the way content is evaporating, this isn't good. Now, we probably hit peak content because of COVID in like 2020, 2021, and it was kind of too much. So we needed to pull back. But I think the knee-jerk reaction of streaming and the way theaters sort of fell apart and the way studios are sort of reorganizing right now is not good for the geekdom culture. We talked about Funko before the call started, $30 million in excess inventory of product they couldn't sell, and now they're cutting off like 10% of their workforce and other changes that are happening. It's a lot. So I think a lot in entertainment needs to be reevaluated. But hopefully, like, Celebration will be truly a celebration of Star Wars, and we'll get back to what's coming. I want to see new movies. I want to see new TV shows. And hopefully, like, you know, in the Andor panel, they're going to tell us what's happening in season 2. And there are other shows coming. So let's jump into the next panel, because Ahsoka is the next one happening. So there's only 2 panels on Friday on the main stage, the Studio Showcase and Andor season 1. Saturday, April 8th at 11 a.m., the Ahsoka panel. Before the call, Gary and I both said this is our number 1 panel. Like, we're most excited about this panel and this panel only. If I could do one panel, it's just this one. I'm going to read the description real quick. Join executive producers Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and special guests for a look at the upcoming Disney Plus series, Ahsoka. That's all they told us. It doesn't matter. I'm in. I'm camped out tomorrow. What's your thoughts, Gary?
Yeah, I think this is going to be everyone's go-to. And mentioning special guests, I mean, it has to be the reveal of the cast, doesn't it? And I think this will be our first real look at live action Rebels. I don't think there's any other way that they could do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Rosario Dawson's going to have to be there. I think they'll tell us who. I think this is where they'll announce who Grand Admiral Thrawn is. I think he's really the big bad.
And I think we might get the full Ezra confirmation as well. And I think we might even get a first look.
And they're definitely going to bring out Sabine. We know that she's been cast. I always forget her name. And once I see her in real life and they put the name to, like, it'll happen. It's not sticking right now. And then I would love for them to wheel out live action Chopper, maybe live action Hera if she's a big part of the show, and maybe give us a little more about like what the plot is, because this rumor swirling around online about the world between worlds and the Natasha Leo Bordizzo. Ashley's got it. So, by the way, if you ever need a question answered about Rebels or anything, like, Ashley's got it. So I am forgetful. I think if they could confirm for us what the show is going to be, like, are we going into the world between worlds and doing a what if? Like, I think people would lose their minds for that in a very good way, because it could just be exploring things that aren't 100% true while letting us play in the playground without any major consequences, right? Like, I think that would be really fun to see. This could have been what if this, like, that's how the world between worlds, I think, could function in Star Wars without it becoming like bad time travel, you know?
Well, I mean, for me, the likeliest avenue is obviously the search for Ezra, because we all know what happened at the end of Rebels, and there is talk of Big Bad Blue showing up, and we have Sabine there, obviously. But I think a big one for me was, I think, seeing the Purgles in Mando. I don't think there's any other way that you could look at it like that. I mean, we know Ezra develops a connection through the Force with the Purgles, and of course the Purgles can travel through hyperspace. So if there's going to be a search for Ezra, then that sort of hinting or foreshadowing has to lead to something, surely.
Oh yeah, I mean, I lost my mind when I saw those Purgles on screen. Like, I screamed at the TV, and Ashley and I were texting each other furiously about it. I'm sure for like any casual fan, they were like, "Oh, whatever that is, that's interesting." And then every fan site on YouTube had "Who are the Purgles?" So we actually watched The Call on Rebels Revisited that following Monday, which is the episode where they introduce the Purgles and you see how they operate. And, you know, they use gas essentially from a meteor to jump to hyperspace. So hyperspace, like the jump, is a natural occurrence. And then it was turned into technology, by people, which is kind of interesting. That's part of the natural world. That's really Ezra's biggest strength as a Jedi, is his connection with animals and the natural world. So I hope we get some of that in the Ahsoka show. And I definitely want to spend more time with live action Ezra. Like, I love that character. I'm curious to see like what they do with him as like a grown up, we'll say, like full Jedi Knight kind of character. Like, will he be kind of like Ahsoka? Oh my God, that's going crazy over here. Stop it. He's being bad. But yeah, I'm so pumped about this panel. And if I could attend one thing, this would be the thing.
But I think also an interesting point of view is that if we are going to have a Big Bad Blue, then something the size of a Purgle would be a fantastic weapon against a Star Destroyer.
Oh, absolutely. If Thrawn figured out how to weaponize a Purgle, there would have been no Luke Skywalker Death Star situation. I also think that there's a theory that if Thrawn was around during the events of the original trilogy, that the Rebels would have lost. And it's hard for me to argue that, because like, you read the books and he's always one step ahead. He just, like, there's no way he could have predicted the Purgles, and that's what got him in the end. Like, everything else, he's pretty much only been foiled by, like, he never lost to the Rebels. They always escaped him, but they never really won, And so I think that like Thrawn is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I think he's a worthy big bad of the age of the New Republic, like that time period, this Mando time period. He could be the big bad, and I think he'd be a worthy villain.
Well, you know my feelings on the character, so I'm all in for Thrawn in any way, shape, or form. But the next panel that's coming up, Mark, you mentioned if Thrawn had have been around, potentially we wouldn't have Star Wars as it is today. But we're effectively going back to the end of the original trilogy, and it is the 40 years of Return of the Jedi.
I'm losing my mind for this one.
Yeah, this is going to be a fantastic panel. So it's taking place on Saturday the 8th from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. And it reads, 40 years ago, Return of the Jedi was the highly anticipated sequel that Star Wars fans had been waiting for years to see, and the Star Wars theatrical adventure to be released for the foreseeable future. Counted as a favorite episode by many, Return of the Jedi's story, characters, settings, and score still resonate with fans today, and its 40th anniversary offers the perfect opportunity to celebrate this time-honored classic. Join special guest host Ming-Na Wen, what a host by the way, as she chats with Star Wars legends of the past, present, and future about the influence of this beloved chapter in the galaxy far, far away. So obviously here on the VCN and the Intergalactic Newsdesk, we are lucky enough to know a lot of the folks who are appearing on the panel. So Mark, what is it about this one for you that just does it?
So I've done a lot of podcasts over the years, and they always ask what my favorite Star Wars movie is. That's sort of a go-to question. Return of the Jedi is my favorite. This is the one with, I believe that it is the first Star Wars movie I ever saw. I am a child of Endor, as I say. The Ewoks brought me in, and that's what I loved as a kid. I'm just too young to be an OT fan, but I was that perfect age for when the Ewoks were on my TV. I watched the made-for-TV Ewoks movies, which don't hold up but are great, and the cartoons. So I love everything about that. So I will rewatch Return of the Jedi just regularly. And I know that it's not the best Star Wars movie, but it is my favorite. I love everything about it. I think it closes out the trilogy really well. I think that in the end, it's so cheesy, but like love saves the day as opposed to conflict. So like that Luke saving Vader, you can make the argument, like, was he worthy of redemption or not? Like, I think that's a good conversation. I don't think he was, but still, that's what happened. And I just love everything about this film. Leia being revealed as the secret sibling. Like everyone gets their moments to shine. And so for us now, 40 years later, to think about this film closing out what we thought was the end of Star Wars, and man, like Star Wars isn't ending. It's going to outlive all of us. Like there's going to be yet another trilogy. We're going to get a 9, 10, 11 eventually, or 10, 11, 12. And 40 years from now, they're going to be talking about the 40th anniversary of, Force Awakens. And people are going to be like, remember when they brought the brand back for like the 100th time? So I see this as like a great way to look back, but also think about what the next 40 years mean for this brand.
It's a great way to look at it. And I think as well, it signifies something of which I've always said, is that whatever your Star Wars is, no avenue, no show, no era belongs to anyone. The era that we are currently in, we are just merely its current custodians who are holding on to it until the next generation comes along. So for those who were original trilogy kids, this will be right up their street. And as you said, down the line, we'll be talking about 40 years of the next trilogy that's going to come along. But also, I think it'll be nice from a storytelling point of view to hear from the guys who were there during the peak of it and what effectively became, so I know it's a hotly contested sort of topic of conversation, but one of the better endings to a trilogy of movies that there's ever been.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right that it's the original cast and crew, those who are left, the ones who can tell us these stories. We are getting to a point where you saw it on the guest list, very few OT guests in the autograph hall. And now I would argue the current custodians of this brand are the children of the prequels, the ones who grew up with episodes 1, 2, and 3. We're seeing it in the current streams of content as well. Like in Mando this week, Ahmed Best came in to play a Jedi that no one ever heard of to rescue baby Grogu. And Grogu was like who rescued Grogu has been the question, right? Since like the day we met him. And they didn't bring in Luke Skywalker or any surviving Jedi from Order 66 that we had heard of before. They brought in the actor who was maligned for playing Jar Jar and gave him a redemption. The character is less significant. The fact that it's Ahmed Best coming in, like, this is the age of the prequel resurgence. The 20th of Episode 1 was in 2019, which is when I ran the autograph hall at Celebration. And so we're constantly now, we just did the 20th of Attack of the Clones last year. We are in the celebratory mood. Like, we're celebrating. This is celebration for the prequels, which is kind of how Celebration started, right? Like, Celebration 1 was all about the launch of Episode 1. So we're in that now. These kids grew up, they are adults, and they're going to be running this thing. I can't wait until there's eventually the 40th anniversary of Episode 1 20 years from now, in the year 2043. We're going to be sitting at this news desk, by the way, and I'm going to be like, guys, are you packed for London again? It's back to London. It's going to be very that, and it will keep going. And yeah, I'm curious to see, what do we do next? Like, is there, like, what does the next set of stories look like? And what do these guys think of what's currently going on with, like, streaming and seeing some of their characters? Like, there's a Wookiee in Mando. There are Hutts. Jabba the Hutt was introduced in Return of the Jedi. He was in the Book of Boba Fett. There's streams from Return of the Jedi that continue throughout the saga that we're still seeing.
And with the guests that are on the panel, I'm incredibly interested to see what it was like from the creature and practical effects side of things compared to what we have now with volume and stagecraft and everything like that. I mean, we look at the likes of Sean Crawford, who was Yakface, and then everyone knows the great Mike Quinn being under Nine Numb. So it'll be just curious to see what it was like for filming was like for them then versus what we have now from that perspective. And I think that'll be a fascinating talk, because there will be a lot of people at Celebration who are prop builders, cosplayers, whatever the case may be. So it'll be a real in-depth look at something that maybe we don't think about nowadays.
Well, what's funny is the very next panel is also creature focused. So after that panel, which is Saturday 2 to 3 o'clock, the next panel on the main stage is the Creature Cantina from 4:30 to 5:30, and it's the new generation of Creature Shop people. So this one, step into the amazing world of Neil Scanlon's Creature Cantina, which is the one that's based in England, responsible for the creation of all droids, creatures, and aliens of each UK-based Star Wars production in the last 10 years. Join Neil and his team on a journey as they show you for the first time ever how they create, build, and perform the characters you've fallen in love with. And so I recognize names on this list. So Neil Scanlon, obviously, who runs the Creature Shop, Derek Arnold, who is an animatronic and performance coordinator, Matt Denton, who's an electronic designer and development supervisor. And I mentioned them first because I know them both, and we've had them sign autographs for Tops. Matt Denton was actually a guest at Star Wars Celebration in 2019. He's one of the R2 BB-8 guys as well. And then Fiona Barnes, who's a fabrication design supervisor. So these are three big roles in the Creature Shop. We're talking about animatronics, we're talking about puppeteering, it's adjacent to costuming. This is incredible stuff. This would be one of my hidden gems. I picked a different one, but this would be another hidden gems panel. Go talk to these guys. I've met Matt, super interesting. Derek, I've spoken to as well, super interesting. I'm sure Fiona is just as much. And of course, Neil, I would love to get in a room with Neil and just ask him 1,000 questions, right?
Well, this was actually my hidden gem for on the main stage, because when you read the CV of Neil and what he's done, I mean, if we're just talking recently, he worked on Wednesday, he worked on Willow, he worked on Banshees of Inisherin, Andor, Solo, you name it. Yeah, I believe he
What did he do for Banshees? Was it the war stuff? Prosthetics?
I'm not 100% sure. I just remember actually seeing it pop up.
Huh. Interesting. I love that he's part of Wednesday. We have that license. So that's exciting. We're doing costumes.
And I mean, everyone remembers the reaction to when Prometheus came out, the engineers' armor and costume, which were just phenomenal. I mean, it's literally a who's who at the top of their craft within this field, and we are blessed just to have them under the Lucasfilm umbrella and everything else that they're working on. It's just incredible.
Yeah, that's going to be a great panel. If you guys have time to go to that one, definitely. The creature people always have amazing stories too, across the board. If you're able to do photo ops and autographs with anyone from the Creature Shop, sometimes you'll also be able to get to talk to them at their table for a minute. They're willing to tell you all sorts of behind the scenes stuff, which is just incredible. So that'll be a great panel. I definitely want to stream that one. Also streaming that. So that's the end of Saturday. Also streaming on the main stage the next day on Sunday. Remember, it's a 4 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4-day show, Friday through Monday. Sunday kicks off at 11 a.m. Again, England time. So wake up early, East Coasters. I have to remind myself because I'm gonna have to set my alarm for the middle of the night. The first panel of the day is the villains of the sequel trilogy. So the dark side of the Force is a pathway to many panels, some considered to be can't miss. I love that. I love that quote. Join host Amy Radcliffe, who is spectacular, as she sits down with Ian McDermott, who's the Emperor. Somehow Palpatine returned. Andy Serkis, Supreme Leader Snoke, and Gwendolyn Christie, Captain Phasma, as they discuss their villainous roles in the final chapter of the Skywalker saga. What's so interesting, though, as I was looking at these names, I don't even think a single one of them share a scene together. That's what's so nuts. Like, Snoke is never on screen with Palpatine, and Phasma's never on screen with Snoke, but they are all like three major villains throughout the saga. And I think Phasma was a little underutilized, but Gwendolyn Christie's great. Obviously, Palpatine, Ian McDermott is incredible in all things. And Andy Serkis is just like a game changer in the world of mocap and everything he's done outside of Star Wars. So he's just fascinating. And now his triumphant return in Andor, unable to swim, but Kino Loy made an impact for sure.
Certainly. And from a kind of selfish point of view, I'm more so curious to see what can and can't Andy Serkis say about Supreme Leader Snoke.
Yes.
We all know the many stories and tabloids and story routes that this has gone down. So from that perspective, I am really curious to see what Andy will be able to say and won't be able to say. So it'll be interesting to see what the line of questioning is for him in respect to that. But I mean, anyone who's listened to Ian talk, he can hold an audience. He's an incredible storyteller, and the
super charismatic, super interesting. Yeah.
But I mean, also to revisit that character after such a long time and just be able to sit back in naturally, it was fantastic. So
and it's in every stream of content. He came back to Rebels. That voice sounded spot on. He came back for the new trilogy. His performance looked like he hadn't missed a day. And then he's back in Bad Batch. Like, this man he is this character, which is so crazy. Like, he slips into it so easily. It's almost scary. It's like, oh girl, is that in you? Like, but he's also like the nicest guy too. I can tell you from behind the scenes, him and his team, super, super nice. It's so easy to work with. People describe him as like sweet Palpatine. But he really is, Ian McDermott, like the nicest guy. And then he just, like, when he slips into that voice though, it's like horrifying, like to hear it in live, like even when he just said like to do it, to like re-roll the trailer, I was like, oh, scary. It gets you when you see it in person. So I think that'll be another can't miss panel, because I think the three of them will have some interesting stories. Gwendolyn, I think, has got a lot of content from Force Awakens, and obviously Andy Serkis from Last Jedi, and then Ian McDermott from Rise of Skywalker. So between the three of them, they could cover the whole trilogy.
Yeah, and I can't imagine it won't perhaps branch out into some other areas that they've worked on, for which they called on their experience to mold into the characters that they were. But I think that panel will be potentially another hidden gem.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think this is going to be a good one. That's it. I think all the panels are great, and it was really hard for me to choose. It was like Ahsoka, though, is like, if I could just do one, it's that. But I mean, everything on here seems really interesting. Yeah, and actually, the next one. So another one. This is another look back panel. So a look back at Obi-Wan Kenobi. So this is also on Sunday. It's at 1:30. So they're giving us good breaks on the main stage. Like, they're giving you a big panel, and then you got an hour to go around and shop and whatever else, and then you come back for another big event. This is an hour-long panel. Take a look back at the hit limited series with Obi-Wan Kenobi's Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, Indira Varma, Vivian Lyra Blair, and executive producer Deborah Chow. So this, I think, will actually just be a look back. I do not think they're announcing a season 2. I do not think they're announcing a spinoff. I think this is really just a celebration of the character of Obi-Wan, because, as you mentioned, who are the custodians right now? It's the prequel kids. Like, Obi-Wan is a hot character right now. I could see the character appearing in Ahsoka. I could see Hayden appearing in Ahsoka, which has been a rumor for a while. Vivian, it's her first celebration. Everyone be nice to Vivian. Lord help me if I hear anyone rude to the children. Honestly, we all remember what happened to Jake Lloyd. Like, everyone needs to be nice to Vivian, and she was great as Princess Leia. Whether she was or wasn't doesn't matter, but like, this is her first celebration. Let's make her feel comfortable and accepted and loved. Like, bring the love for that. And then Indira Varma, I thought, was a standout in the show. So hopefully, I'd love to see more of her. Like, I put her somewhere. Bring her to Andor. Like, that'd be great.
Yeah, it'll be curious to see this panel, because there were the vast majority of people, I think, loved Kenobi. And there was obviously some people who didn't quite like it from the perspective of that maybe in the end we got where we hoped we would go, but perhaps how we got there was a point of contention. I mean, I know there were sort of rumblings of why wasn't Hayden used a heck of a lot more, because it was effectively a limited series. Was he utilized as much as he should have been?
It wasn't called the Darth Vader show.
I know.
So it's expectations versus, all right, so what was promised versus what did you expect versus what did they deliver? Like,
even more
you have to
Anakin would have
calibrate
been
that.
ideal.
Sure. And by the way, like I do think something like Andor or Mando, when they do a side story, or Book of Boba Fett, when they do a side story that focuses heavily on a different character that's like not in the title or not the lead, I think that's a valid criticism. Now, sometimes it's handled really well. I actually really like the Mando stories in Book of Boba Fett. And I thought in the latest episode of Mandalorian, I thought the story with Ahmed Best's character, the scientist, was really compelling, and there was a thematic parallel. So that made sense to me. But there are definitely other times when it's like, why are we spending time with this person and not that person? And that just feels disjointed. So there's definitely room for real criticism in that space. I do think the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, though, suffered from expectations that were never promised, and people were like, well, why didn't we get XYZ? And I was like, I don't know, they didn't tell you they were giving you that, so what's the problem here? That's the way I felt about Obi-Wan in general. I liked it, but it also wasn't at the top of my list. Like, Andor was really the big winner for me in 2022.
My one hope for Kenobi is that we do get a little bit more information on the path. And
yes,
I mean, obviously Quinlan's name was mentioned, so
yes,
surely there has to be more expansion in that, because if Quinlan is there, it opens the realm of possibilities for other surviving Order 66 members, perhaps that we don't even know about, which is an avenue to introduce some more new characters.
Yeah, I like new characters. I don't think we always need to keep going back to the same well. We talked about that with picking up Baby Grogu. It ended up being Ahmed Best's Jedi, who I guess we've seen him in the game show, but that's not really, but like, yeah, could Cal Kestis be on the path? That game is coming out now for a reason, right? Like, this timing, I would call it suspicious. It was going to be out before Celebration, and now it's coming out directly after Celebration. There's something, and that's not just, I think, game development. I think there's a timing reason, because you wouldn't cut it that close anyway when it comes to like finishing the game. Like, it's probably done already, and they're just like waiting for the right moment, because you have to like print the game and ship it and all that kind of stuff. I think there's a reason that Cal Kestis is being held for some announcement during Celebration, which will then hype up sales for the game. By the way, I think the game looks great. We could do a whole show on that another time. I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, and you're saying it being held back for Celebration as well, but let's not forget Battle Scars was released just before Celebration kicks off. The Fallen Order novel was released, so that's another lead and build up to it. But
yeah,
as we said on the last show, we're more so interested in what hasn't been announced versus what has, and I think a glaring omission in the lineup is something to do with Jedi Survivor and Cal Kestis. I think it's just a huge gap that I maybe I'm a little bit too optimistic, but I can't imagine them not filling in the gap somewhere in some shape or form.
I also can't imagine this man doesn't meet Ahsoka. Like, he's carving a name for himself in a way that, like, he went to Ilum. She has she knows what's going on everywhere. Ahsoka is the glue, right? We're just going to acknowledge that. Like, she's the glue right now. Oh, yeah, she's the fulcrum. She is the connectivity from the prequels to the classic trilogy to now the Mando time period. I don't know if she makes it all the way to the new trilogy, but that's pretty damn good, right? 3 major time periods that she's flying through. And she knows Luke. And she obviously knows Leia, and she knows Bail, and she knows Padme, and was Vader's or Anakin's Padawan. Like, she's gonna know who Cal Kestis is, and she's gonna meet him, I think. Like, I would assume. So I would love in the Ahsoka show if like Cameron Monaghan pops in and there's a what if like with him. I keep thinking the Ahsoka show is a what if. I'm just going to go with it at this point. We also need to see Barriss Offee. I just want to will that into the universe. Like, let's get some Barriss in there. I know that's another rumor that just popped up, so I'd be down for that.
Well, I mean, if we're getting Chopper regards live action Ahsoka, we can't have BD1.
Yes,
being there
that'd be so cute.
So yeah.
Did they do a BD1 droid somewhere? That like
they did a BD in Mando.
That's what it was. So I was like, okay, they already built one, so we're good. Okay, it's happening. Look, Calcast is confirmed clearly from that. All right, we have so many more panels to cover, and we're going to try to keep the show to an hour and a half today, guys, because otherwise, like Gary and I could literally sit here all day, and we don't want to do that to you guys. So we're going to continue to fly through because we also want to talk about the fan stuff. The next panel on Sunday, 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, Disney Parks, where Star Wars comes to life. So this will be about the parks itself. Join some of the creative minds from Walt Disney Imagineering and Lucasfilm for a special look at how Disney brings Star Wars to life in the parks and beyond. Discover more about immersive experiences from a galaxy far, far away, including Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, that's the hotel, and more. Disney and Star Wars fans alike will be treated to the insights only these creators can provide. I love hearing from Imagineering. Like, I think that they're the most interesting people in all of Disney, right? And that's why when I think about like who I want to lead the company, I would love someone from inside Imagineering to find their way up. But sometimes the creative space, like you end up like leading a department in Imagineering, but then you never make it to the C-suite. Like, these are the visionaries of the company. They're the ones who are doing the creative work. I think like if they have some expansion plans for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge or some type of revamping with the hotel, now's the time to announce it, because I think that Galaxy's Edge has been criticized for being a little too rigid. I think they need to figure out a way. They brought in Mando, they brought in Baby Grogu. They need to figure out how to bring some fun to that space, and I think they need less of like a ride experience and more just an injection of fun, for lack of a better word, right?
Well, if we're talking about Imagineering and Disney parks, I'd have to imagine Josh is going to be sort of leading the charge for Disney, considering how many times you've seen him been pictured with Iger since he's been back. So I would imagine Josh D'Amaro will be there in some shape or form. And I can't imagine they're not going to show off the live action lightsaber. I think that's just something which is nailed
The one from
on
South by Southwest that they showed. Yeah.
which is nailed on to happen. But a little suspicion that I've had, and again, I have no insider info, this is just my own personal opinion. We got to see the Judy Hopps robot. I really wouldn't be surprised if we see some other form of Star Wars robot slash droid make some sort of an appearance. That's just something that I've had in the back of my mind, that it would make sense to do it in this way.
Yeah.
I think showing more people the Galactic Star Cruiser, the reaction to the Halcyon wasn't the best due to the pricing and the scale and everything.
The price is a lot. Yeah. It's someone described it as a glorified escape room. And while I think that is harsh, if that opinion is out there, it's going to take a lot of turning the wheel to figure out how to undo that perception. It is expensive. The people I know who went, though, really liked it. I think it's only built for a hardcore Star Wars audience. And I don't know if it's as conducive to like a family experience as it could be, because again, it's too serious. Like, I was like, how is this not fun? You know what I mean? Like, that's what's missing.
But I mean, isn't the sort of speciality cocktail like $5,000?
Oh, well, that's one of those, like, that's an influencer.
You know what I mean? The extravagance.
Yeah. I get that. Like, there's always, it's going to Serendipity and getting the $1,000 sundae, right? You get the spoon and the, edible gold, and it's an experience. And you propose to your girlfriend, which you should never do in public, guys. I don't want to see that. Like, do it at home. So if she has to say no, it doesn't happen publicly. Fun fact. I'm curious to see where this goes, because I don't think they're expanding. I don't think they're adding rides. I don't think that there's investment in the park happening on a broad level that is building up, even though Universal is making giant moves. Like, they have the new Super Mario Land or Super Nintendo World or whatever it's called that looks incredible. I don't think Disney is doing as much. They just released like the Guardians of the Galaxy coaster in Epcot, which is a big one. And they've got a couple other small things, like the Tron cycle is finally opening years later, but their construction seems to be very slow compared to what's happening. And considering everything else going on at the company, I can't imagine they're saying that they're going to invest like tens of millions of dollars to put in a new ride in one of the Batus. I don't think.
No, maybe something more like adding some new planets to Star Tours or something along those lines. But
that could be cute.
But I mean, they're going to have to do something, because Epic Universe and Universal is going to be phenomenal. And as you say, everyone, I think, is just waiting for sort of the nailed on confirmation that Super Nintendo World is coming to Orlando. And if it does, it's going to take an enormous amount of business away from Disney.
I was considering going to Japan. Like, that's how like big into Mario I am. And now that it's in California, that's probably going to be my next trip, which means I won't be going to Orlando because you can really only do a few of these, right? And there are limited budgets. And imagine you have a family. Like it's the kind of thing where I think it will take away a lot of business. So I'm curious to see where they're going with parks because I'm a big Disney fan. I've been to the parks numerous times. I went to Star Wars weekends all the time. I wish they would just tell us Star Wars weekends is coming back. Like do that. Like it doesn't need to be canon. Like that's if I could have one thing from the parks, it's the return of Star Wars weekends. That's the only thing I would ask for. All right, let's move on to the next panel. This one I also think is everything a hidden gem. I think this is a hidden gem. This is our first Monday panel, 11 a.m. The Bad Batch. So once again, Amy Radcliffe is hosting. She invites the Star Wars Bad Batch executive producer and supervising director Brad Rao, executive producer and head writer Jennifer Corbett, executive producer Athena Portillo, and actors D. Bradley Baker and Michelle Ang, obviously she plays Omega, to discuss highlights from the second season of the acclaimed series. At this point, season 2 will have completed. We've got, I think, 2 more episodes or 2 more weeks of Bad Batch. It's coming up. It's very soon. So by now, season 2 will have closed. I also think this is another one where it's a look ahead. We know that Bad Batch is getting more seasons. We don't know when. This is not a series finale because if it were, we would not hear the end of it. It would be like all they were talking about. I think this could go like the Clone Wars because we've got years and years and years. We have 20 years until we have to have Luke Skywalker blow up the Death Star, right? So we have time to spend with the Bad Batch and in this time period, even though every stream of content seems to be living in this time period right now. I like this very close to the Empire, right before, like, it's not really the Age of Rebellion yet. It's like the Empire just formed. I think it's an interesting time period and I'm loving season 2. Are you enjoying season 2 of Bad Batch?
I can't even tell you how much I love the Bad Batch. And the Bad Batch end credits is my ringtone.
That's amazing. All right, I haven't gone that far, but I was very lukewarm on season 1. And I love animation. I love Star Wars animation. I'm the first one to defend Star Wars animation. And so when Bad Batch didn't land for me, I was really disappointed. And I just kept it to myself because if I don't like something, I don't talk about it. Like if there's something in the fandom or in the franchise that's not for me, I'm just like, oh, that's not really not for me. That's fine. And I was a little disappointed with Bad Batch season 1. And then season 2 happened. And Ashley, my co-host on Rebels, was like, you have to catch up. You have to rewatch season 1. We've got season 2 is going to be great. And I was like, I will watch it out of obligation because I have to. I sit at this news desk. I have a show about Star Wars animation on the channel every Monday. Like I've got to be in the know. And I'm watching out of obligation and I loved this season. Loved. And now I'm rewatching the season because it's been so good. Like the stories have been spectacular. They've really dialed up the conflict. It feels like a much bigger story, but the character development is really there. Like they're doing a killer job on this season. So I don't know what happened in season 1 to season 2 to make that change, but I am super into Bad Batch and I hope they keep going with this level of storytelling for many, many more seasons.
If I may add as well, we knew the animation was going to be good, but season 2's animation has just been absolutely gorgeous. It's been spectacular. But
it looks like a movie.
Yeah. And the one big thing for me is, and maybe I'm heavily biased because I've interviewed the composers behind the show, but the music in these animated series does not have to go as hard as it does, but it has been. The music of the Bad Batch, and equally as much as it was with Tales of the Jedi, have been absolutely phenomenal. And I think from a Bad Batch perspective, and I'd love to hear your take on this, was that I think when we look at the characters of the Bad Batch, and I mean the Bad Batch themselves, I could see a spin-off that would be very, very different for each and every one of those characters, and I would tune in for it.
Yeah, the only one who I feel like I don't know is Hunter. Like he's the center. You know how like they usually design a show in like a wheel and there's someone in the middle and then there's like spokes that like everyone's sort of defined by something specific. Hunter's in the middle. So he's like the Seinfeld or the Carrie Bradshaw or the everyman, the vanilla guy. And so I was like, I don't know anything about him, but I think Wrecker's hilarious. I love Crosshair. He's one of my favorite villains. I think that Omega is really interesting. Like she started off pretty annoying, a little bit like Ahsoka. And now I'm like, oh, I love this girl. Like I would die for this girl, like protect this girl at all costs. So like, this is where I think the show is doing a really good job developing out those characters. I even like Tech. I found him annoying too. And now I like him. So I'm a fan of what they're doing with the show. I think they've really, they figured out how to speak to an adult audience this season, because season 1 was very, like Rebels early season 1, where it was like, okay, our target demo is like 7-year-olds. And I was like, okay, that's not working. Let's go back to the 37-year-olds. It's like, yes, nailed it.
I just want to see Sid join the Bad Batch so I can just hear the insults fly every
I
episode.
love her so much. Oh my God. I love her. I love Wanda Sykes's character. I was like, if I'm going to pick someone to do a spinoff, it's Wanda Sykes. Like, I'm just going to follow her on crazy adventures. She doesn't know what she's doing, but she's very confident. And so I'm in. And she turned out to be a good person. Like, she's just a little bit money hungry, which I think is fine. If that's your worst quality, but you're still going to be a good person and like choose people over money, like, you know, like she saved Omega as opposed to like grabbing the expensive thing. Like, she's a good person still. So, and I think eventually we're going to have this ragtag crew of like misfits, their little island of misfit toys that all have to band together for something. And Wanda Sykes will be a part of it. And probably Sid as well. I think we're going to give Sid a redemption arc because we just don't villainize people anymore. Disney gives everyone redemption.
Well, I suppose it maybe depends on your definition of redemption for the avenue that we go down first.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't want to give any. I feel like the way the show is going to end, it's going to be a bloodbath though. Like, I think that it's going to be a very downer finale, and so just prepare for that going in, guys. I don't think it's going to end well. Plan 99 feels like genocide, right? Like, they're going to exterminate the clones. That's the plan. It's the opposite of Order 66, where the clones killed everyone. This time, everyone's going to kill the clones.
Well, I think Crosshair's redemption arc has already begun, coming towards the end, so it'll be interesting to see what direction that goes in.
Yeah, I like him a lot as a character. I don't know if I would personally be able to forgive him, but I like that the show is asking us to. I think that's a great topic. I'm not sure if I would. I think I would actually be really bad on the redemption front. I'd be like, no, I don't like you. You're dead. Like, I'm pretty bad at that, but I do think presenting that to the audience is really compelling. So I think the Bad Batch panel has potential also to like reveal some stuff for season 3 and keep us invested and interesting. So I'm excited about this one. And this is the second to last panel. Really one more panel and then the closing ceremonies. So Bad Batch is pretty late. That's our Monday 11 a.m. panel. Continuing on Monday, another animation, Visions Volume 2. And there are a lot of guests on this one. So Amy Radcliffe, once again, they just trapped her on that panel. Amy, blink if you need help. She's on the stage all Monday. She's running things over there. Star Wars Visions executive producers and filmmakers from Aardman, Cartoon Saloon, Dart, I should have like double checked all the pronunciations on these. Dart Shatayo, El Giri, La Cachette, Lucasfilm, Punk Robot, Studio Mir, Triggerfish, and 88 Pictures are joining Amy Radcliffe for an exclusive first look at Star Wars Visions Volume 2. And this is super interesting. Again, I love animation, a lot of different studios, not just anime. A lot of great stories that don't need to be canon. Again, it could just be fun. It could just be interesting stories, standalone projects. Amy's a great host. This is going to be a killer panel also.
The reason I'm interested in is there's one of the best Irish animation studios in the world which are involved. So that's why I'm excited. Cartoon Saloon are an award-winning studio here in Ireland, so that's
nice.
That's the primary reason I'm excited for this one. But yeah, not the biggest anime fan, but I am curious to see what they do, because I think the individual animation styles in season 1 were such a nice change of pace, and it offered us something different, which I think is the best thing about the fandom, when we get something new and something different, that it gives us something to talk to, and it expands our appreciation and broadens our horizons into what can be done. That's something that I think is a good thing for the fandom.
Yeah, like, what is Star Wars is the big question, and these stories can live in the Star Wars universe. Like, I loved in Volume 1, I'm gonna get the title wrong, the Ninth Jedi, the one where it turns out like everyone's sabers go up and everyone's red, and that one person wasn't. Like, that twist like really got me. So with it wasn't the Last Jedi, I'm forgetting the title, but that one was tremendous. They were all good. And I like anime. I'm not a big anime fan, so if someone started asking me questions about things, it's like I watched Sailor Moon when I was in high school. That's like the extent of my anime experience, really. But as a genre, I think it's interesting. I think that this is a way in for Star Wars to do things outside of the original trilogy and the existing characters, and try different media. Like, I love this, and I wish there could be more of this, but I also know that like it's probably expensive and probably doesn't make money. Like, they dropped season 1 all at once, and I was like, no, it needed to be weekly, but I think they didn't want to like create it like episodic. They just want like, oh, here's the batch of content. And then I feel like it kind of got overlooked. Like, I forgot even when Visions came out, I was slowly watching the episodes, and it took me a little while, and it like was in and out of the discourse pretty quickly, but the content's great. So I highly recommend everyone to go back and 1, watch Visions, and then 2, get excited about Visions Volume 2, because I think that's going to be a really interesting group of people to tell us what they're going to do. I have no idea what's coming on that one. It's the one I would say I know the least about, right? Like, I don't know what those stories could be. And then that's it for panels. The last one is, we'll call it a panel, but it's the closing ceremonies. So Monday at 4 p.m. The show officially closes at 5. And believe me, they will brush you off of the floor at 5 o'clock. Like, they bring the sweepers. And especially in England, they've got labor laws that are much stricter than America. Like, you'll be out the door at 5:01 p.m. So I actually think the floor closes at 6 or whatever it was. They will push you out. This one is closing ceremonies. And basically, I think this is when they'll announce
2025.
what the next celebration will be, which we know is 2025, where it'll be. And they'll put together like a clip show, I think, so look for yourselves in the big clip. I know there are some people from the VCN who have been featured in some of those like reels, which is very cool. And they'll show highlights from the panels and everything. It'll be a very good, like, feel good send off. And hopefully everyone at this point will have had a fantastic weekend, spent too much money, made some new friends, enjoyed their time. I'm sad I'm not going to be there, but I think this is always a really like special thing to be a part of. If you're standing there with everyone else, people start crying. Oh, it's awesome. I love everything about it.
And that will be the most interesting thing. That's the primary reason everyone goes to the end of the show, is to see what's happening next. And I agree with you. I think they will announce it, because I think they will give people some more time to actually plan ahead with it, with a 2-year break. So my money is on Orlando. That's just my personal.
So.
Yeah, that's my thoughts with it. And now they could completely and utterly surprise us and maybe go to somewhere like Japan or whatever. But I think Orlando or back to Anaheim is probably the likely.
It makes sense. I think Orlando needs a little help right now, but I also know that Disney is feuding with the government of Florida. So I don't know if that's like, I could see them easily saying, hey, we're going back to California and we'll figure out Florida a couple of years from now. I also think that doing an international show this year, and by international, I mean non-US, they'll probably go back to the US. So the core locations are Florida, California, and then outside of that, I don't know. I mean, they could say Kansas City. I don't know. I think it would be great if they were in California again, to push the parks. If they have something big coming in Disneyland, but it is a small park. And I think Orlando is just like a hot button political issue right now, is the only reason I would pull it out of my top slot, because otherwise I was like, oh, it's definitely going to Orlando. But I think other than the political stuff, it's hard to tell. Either way, I do think the safe bet is Orlando or California. That's where we're going to be in 2025. And we have time. By the way, if I have to start talking about Celebration 2025 in a month, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, I need a break, and I'm sure everyone else does as well. I'm excited about 2024 and everything else that's coming with Celebration. But I also, I was trying to tell someone, is like, we can't constantly be in this thing of like, what's next? We have to enjoy the present. And that's hard to do when in pop culture, I feel like things move at the speed of light, and all of a sudden we're always just like on to the next. Like, what shows do we need to binge? And I was like, can I enjoy the show? Can I watch it at my speed? Like, can I absorb it and discuss it? As opposed to like completing it so I can get on to the next task. And I think that's what pop culture is sort of trending toward. And it's tricky how you navigate that,
Completely agree.
Yeah. Spencer's already planning Booth in 25. Oh my God. We will not be talking about this. Blocked and reported. Okay, let's talk about what our must watches are. So Gary and I agreed our number one panel is the Ahsoka panel. I don't know if you could beat that. Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah. And then my other must watch, because we wanted to have a second one, so we'd have something else to talk about. Return of the Jedi 40th for me. Like, that's what brought me into the saga. So I just have like a special place in my heart for the Jedi.
And I'm loving Bad Batch at the moment, so it has to be the Bad Batch for me.
Yeah, I think all good choices. I want to talk quickly about the Twin Suns stage, because Twin Suns and Galaxy are where everything is getting streamed to from the Celebration main stage, but they also have their own streams of content. And in fact, if you go to StarWarsCelebration.com and you click into like explore the show and all the panels, you can filter by the various stages, and there's a lot of them. There's the Celebration stage, Collector stage, Fan stage, Galactic Senate stage, Galaxy stage, Holonet stage, room 14, Holonet stage, room 17, ICC Capital Suite 16, Steam Academy Activity Room, Steam Academy Classroom, Star Wars Celebration Live stage, which, by the way, they've started announcing the guests who are coming to that, so that's very cool. Star Wars Kids stage, Twin Sun stage, and University stage. So there are a lot of stages, a lot of rooms, a lot of activity happening. You could go to Celebration and just do panels all day if that's what you wanted to do. and you didn't have to buy a thing or anything. You could just like literally sit there and absorb content from all the different stages. In fact, I'll say before we get into the other stuff, the Celebration Live stage, they have all sorts of actors that are going to be popping in throughout the weekend. So surprise guests will pop in all day is what they claim, right? But Hayden Christensen, Carl Weathers, Giancarlo Esposito, Matt Lanter, James Arnold Taylor, Ming-Na Wen, Billy D. Williams, Andy Serkis, Dennis Lawson, Anthony Daniels, Vivian Lyra Blair, Ian McDermott, Gwendolyn Christie, Warwick Davis and his children, Annabelle and Harrison, Ewan McGregor, Ashley Eckstein, Jonas Suotamo, Mike Quinn, D. Bradley Baker, Michelle Ang, and Matthew Wood all have confirmed dates and times. So if you want to see any of those people pop in, they all supposedly have 15-minute chunks. It never goes for 15 minutes. They're always up there for a half an hour, and none of them want to stop talking because they're all like surrounded by the love, and we'll take it, right? They're all scheduled, and so you could just pop over to the live stage and be like, oh, Hayden Christensen's on Saturday, April 8th at 12 noon. Get your butt over there and listen to The Chosen One talk to you for 15 minutes and get interviewed probably by Andy and Anthony. Or I think Anthony. I don't think Andy's going this year. But like there will be people from Lucasfilm interviewing these guys. So that'll be really fun.
And in terms of us coming up with hidden gems for these ones, Mark, I think when we talk about the Twin Sun stage, the two of us were never going to disagree on this in any way, shape, or form, because the two of us have picked for the Twin Sun stage on Saturday the 8th at 5:30 to 6:30. One of the later panels is the 15th year anniversary panel of the Clone Wars. And we are both enormous fans of the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars, particularly for me, outside of the films, was the Star Wars I grew up on. So for me, that's something that's really, really special. And you look at the list of guests who are showing up. I mean, we only have to mention Filoni, Matthew Wood, Dee Bradley, Ashley, Matt Lanter, and James Arnold Taylor. So the whole gang is back together. So that will be fantastic. A panel full of stories.
I love the Clone Wars so much. Also, by the way, I think Ashley Eckstein will pop into the Ahsoka panel. There's no way they're not going to bring her in, and they're going to have some kind of role for her.
Cameo.
Like, yeah, something. You know, she's doing a dual photo op with Rosario. So like Ashley is in it. Ashley will be in live action Ahsoka. There's no way they couldn't. I would love for it to be a what if, and all of a sudden it's like Ashley as Ahsoka walking around. I would lose my mind. Twin Suns, the 15th anniversary panel is gonna be spectacular for Clone Wars. I'm so excited about this. This one, I hope they stream it somehow so I can watch. All of these guys are fantastic. And then we picked two other hidden gems. I did one that's on a really random, it's the on the fan stage, Drawn This Way cosplaying from Star Wars animation, which, me being such an animation guy, like how do you bring those characters to life? That'll be really fun. So if you wanted to cosplay from the Clone Wars or Rebels or Jedi Fallen Order, these people, Captain Amelia, Kazuki Cosplay and Friends, they will help you out. This, by the way, this is no affiliation to my company or licensed product costumes or anything like that. It's just people teaching you how to cosplay from animation. That's cool. So I want to see what they're going to do there. Do you have any other small ones, Gary, that you wanted to plug before we get into the podcast?
My one was Doug Chang designing Obi-Wan and The Mandalorian. It's on the Galaxy stage on Monday the 10th from 2:30 till 3:30.
Very cool. Okay, let's jump into Doug Chang's fantastic. Let's jump into the HoloNet stage. There's a lot to cover. I'm going to read the list first, and then we're going to get into a couple of them. So we've got Remembering 40 Years of El Retorno del Jedi. We've got the Nerdy Wordy Book Club. We've got Star Wars Library and Comics, Team Holland Star Wars Podcast, Full of Sith, Coffee with Kenobi, Vintage Star Wars 101, the Dad Batch Podcast, Good Morning Tatooine, Star Wars English Class, Video Games and Their Influence on Star Wars Lore, Star Wars Geek Girls, Generations of Star Wars Fashion, Blob Alive, who could that be? The Emerald in a Galaxy Far, Far Away, that's with Gary O'Toole, obviously. Star Wars Explained, who are some of my favorite people. Who's the Bosk, which that's just the funniest name. And that's with Mike Celestino. He's one of our Alderaan Idol contestants. The Resistance Broadcast, Star Wars Minute, Best Car Bucket, Sky Talkers, Talking Bay 94, Start Your Engines, Fantha Tracks, friends of the show, Galactic Impact, Triad of the Force, Star Wars Sessions, Making Tracks Live, which is also a part of Fantha Tracks, Lucas Files, Jedi News Network, another friend of the show, and Planet Leia. So these are all the things that are happening on the HoloNet stage. So Gary, you're more in tune to this than I am because you're part of the fan sites. Tell everyone what you're doing on your podcast, and if there are any others on here that you want to talk a little more in depth about.
Well, obviously, I would be mentioning the guys from Fanta Tracks because I know them really well, and all their shows that they put on are absolutely amazing. So whether it's Making Tracks or the one that's on later on today is the Planet Leia, which will be another interesting one. So anything Fanta Tracks are doing, the guys from Jedi News Network, looking forward to seeing what the Best Car Bucket do as well, which should be an interesting. But yeah, from our point of view, we are doing Blab Alive, the Emerald in a Galaxy Far, Far Away, and we will be talking all about Ireland's links to Star Wars since the filming has ended, and we'll effectively be talking about what it has done for the country in terms of tourism and the local businesses. You know, Ireland is not a massive country like the United States where filming may take place in locations every day. So from our perspective, it'll be looking at some of the stories from the locals and that what it has done for business and the experience, but also what it has done to showcase Ireland. I mean, we are a country that is heavily reliant on tourism, and so many people now are doing the likes of the tours of the Wild Atlantic Way, and they're going to see the filming locations. So we will have some pretty cool stuff that we will be able to look at, and we will be showing some never before released pictures from the setups, but also we'll be talking about what has happened now since the filming has ceased. A lot of people seem to think that was it for Ireland's involvement within Star Wars, but that is just not the case at all. So, and of course, with us being Irish, there will be a couple of laughs along the way. No doubt, we will. Our panel will start off quite serious, and it will dissolve into something completely else. So, really looking forward to. Absolutely, but it's our second time taken to the celebration stage. We hosted a panel in 2016 when we were in London, so we're just looking forward to getting on stage and chatting all things Star Wars.
That's fantastic. I'm excited to hear your panel. As someone who is on air weekly, I know what it takes to like keep these shows running and have content to share and engage with the fandom. It's a lot of work. I love it, but it is a lot of work. And I know you're traveling like a maniac over the past few weeks, going to conventions and all that stuff. It is a blast, and it is also incredibly time consuming. I know what goes into getting prepared, especially to be on the celebration stage. You got to have a good show because you want people to then follow you after the fact. Like maybe they're hearing you for the first time at celebration. And they're like, I like that guy. Let's subscribe to Blob of the Hut. And hopefully everyone here, all 48,000 members who hopefully are listening live, subscribe to Blob of the Hut to give Gary some love. And I'm excited to hear about this filming location stuff because I know Last Jedi was out there on the island. That's the big one, right?
Yeah, so it won't just be Skellig Michael. We have a couple of other pictures which we are going to be showcasing of the sets once they were fully built. I can't say too much more than that until the panel, but let's just say we have some images that were given to us and taken before things were put on permanent lockdown for filming. So yeah.
Oh, exciting. We also have Matt Booker in the chat. He is from Fanta Tracks. Mark Newbold, one of his coworkers and good friend, he is going to be hosting the HoloNet stages. So I think he's there quite a bit of the time, if not the whole time. Matt can confirm. But yeah, Fanta Tracks is all over this lineup, and you'll definitely run into Matt and Mark and the rest of their crew. They move in a pack. They will find you. They always find me. I'm very lucky. They always come to see me, and I'm sad I'm not going to get to see them in real life this time. So hi to Mark and Matt, and to everyone over at Fantha. Very good friends of the show and people I know from my days over at Tops. There are a few other names on the list that I just wanted to touch on real quick. Coffee with Kenobi is one of my all-time favorite podcasts. I've been friends with Dan Zier for years now. He was one of the first people when I was at Tops to put me on the show and do podcasts and invite me on to talk about random topics. Super nice guy. And he has also got some hosting duties throughout Celebration. He's done that before up on the stage. I think like him and Amy have both been hosting various panels and stages. So I know he has some of that going on this year as well. So give his actual panel a listen. That's Friday, April 7th from 4 to 5 p.m. on the HoloNet stage. Also Star Wars Geek Girl, that's Zoe Hinton. She is a cosplayer, and I did her show a few weeks ago, actually, talking a little bit about the Sabine costume and everything else. She's fantastic. Who else on this list? Star Wars Explained. I'm like literally a fanboy of Star Wars Explained. Alex and Molly, I think, are just like a bright light in the Star Wars fandom in a way that they always exude positivity, and just are good people. I've gotten to meet them a few times. They came to the booth at Celebration 2022 to take some pictures with helmets with me. Just super nice people. Believe me, if they were in the same city, I'd be bothering them to hang out. Like, they're just good people. So if you see them roaming around, I know they've got their podcast, but I think they're also just going to be doing a lot of content collection for their channel. They're also my go-to to check on something, along with Wookiee. I go to the Wikipedia and I go to Alex and Molly to find out what the correct answer is for something, because they know. So highly recommend that. And then, as I mentioned, Who's the Boss? Mike Celestino is one of our Alderaan Idol contestants. So make sure you give him a listen and cheer him on at Alderaan Idol. I think those are the must-see, and of course, Fantha Tracks. Those for me are the ones I'm going to try to make sure I listen to. I'll always make sure, like after the fact, to try to get all of the podcasts listened to and downloaded. If these will obviously be going out on everyone's channels. Gary, do you know like how this is getting ported like to your podcast after the fact? Will it happen like once you're back? This is not going to be live broadcast, right? It'll be live in the show, but not live on the internet, right?
It's live on the show. I'm not sure whether we're actually going to be recording it ourselves or not. I'm still just waiting to see what the technical specifications are for the room, just to see. We didn't record the previous one. Sometimes I think it can get a little bit noisy at times, and the recording can just sound a little bit off. But,
a lot of background. Yeah,
so we'll wait and see what happens with it. But yeah, in terms of if we do record it, we will just drop it as a celebration episode.
Great. I would love to hear all of those. Yeah, and that takes us through all of the panels. We made it. We did it in an hour and a half. So let's talk about what's coming up on the VCN. So Monday, I've got a big announcement. This just went out last night. So Rebels Revisited. I'm back on Rebels Revisited after my 2-week hiatus, and boy, are we coming back with a big episode. We're doing a guest spot. Philip Anthony Rodriguez, who plays the fifth brother, is going to be our first guest on the show. So it'll be me and Ashley interviewing Philip Anthony Rodriguez, who played fifth brother in 6 episodes in Star Wars Rebels Season 2. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat when we get going, and it'll be Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Tuesday is Happy Hour and the Bad Batch Watch Along, which I'm going to use in air quotes because apparently they don't always make it to the Bad Batch Watch Along. But it is a happy hour and everyone gets on Zoom and hangs out. I'm never able to make it. It's the kind of thing where I don't think I've been to one yet, but they're really, really fun. Ashley always says they're a great time. And then Thursday we have the Mandalorian Watch Along of what will be the latest episode. I don't know if there's anything else we can reveal about Thursday. Is that right, Spencer? Nothing else we can say about Thursday, right?
Nothing yet, but there will be, yes.
Yeah, keep an eye out on the page. You know, you'll see a reveal of sorts. And then tomorrow, there should be either a Jedi Archives or a Unifying Force episode, which I don't know what it is.
And guys, just never mind Celebration coming up. Boonta Eve is getting ever closer.
Yep. Yes, Boonta Eve. Oh yeah, Unifying Forces tomorrow with Dave and the guys. And then yes, we are 2 weeks out from Star Wars Celebration. Boonta Eve is that Friday night. Cantina closes it out on Sunday night. So yes, Thursday night, Boonta. Thursday night, Boonta Eve. Sunday night, Cantina 2. We're doing a great job today on all the stuff. I don't have my calendar in front of me, and that was the mistake. I was like, oh, I know that stuff. All the other things listed out for the panels we're trying to read. But yeah, I hope everyone is prepared and feeling good. We're going to have one more show coming before Celebration starts. Next Saturday, we'll do another news desk. And then the big news is we will have a news desk during Celebration. We have teased this before, but we will be live. And by we, it is Team USA. So it's me, Dave, Jeff, and Ashley. We will be on air Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. In fact, I think that Monday, instead of Rebels Revisited, it'll just be like another news desk instead. We'll just take over and we'll be doing recaps from Star Wars Celebration. So Spencer, Gary, and everyone else who are at the show are going to be sending us news bites, pictures, maybe video. We're going to see what we can get up here, and we'll do a news desk like this and give you guys all the big highlights from what happened at the show, probably recaps of the panels. So we'll be doing all of that in evening time in America. So we give everyone some time to like get their stuff over to us from the UK, and we'll do like a proper summary of the day's events. So I'm very much looking forward to our daily review of Celebration 2 weeks from now, which is crazy.
And that 2 weeks is gonna fly.
It does. It's bonkers. I'm in the home stretch now, and we're doing very granular things related to the booth. And I was like, what do you mean those aren't printed yet? And it's like, oh, we have time. And I was like, oh my God, print them tomorrow. Like things like that are happening, right?
I apologize in advance for everything the Jawa, the Jawa is gonna steal. Sorry.
Yeah. I wish everyone who is attending Star Wars Celebration a fantastic trip, safe travels. Tune in next week for one more of these, where we haven't decided on the exact topic yet, but I think it's going to be a lot of last minute preparation and talking about what we're most excited about the show, talking more about Boonta Eve and Alderaan Idol, and a little bit about Cantina. They've announced a ton of guests as well, so I hope you're following all of those on social media. And of course, we have the Facebook group itself with news up to the minute news. There's someone talking about Celebration right now, asking questions, talking about the swag they're bringing, looking for buddies to go to panels with. You can feel comfortable like meeting these people in the group and hanging out there. I think it'll be a great time for everyone who's going. Sad I'm not going to be there, but I'm excited to be your hometown, keeping the home fires burning, getting you up to date on all the news once the show starts.
I'll give Spencer some patches for you.
Yes. Oh, yes. Everyone going is required to bring me a patch. That is the toll. That's what I'll be receiving as payment for running the news desk while you guys are over there. So we're very excited. But I think that's it for this week. So Gary, thank you for joining me. Spencer, thank you again for producing. Everyone, be sure to check out all the activity that's happening on the VCN this week. Like I mentioned, Rebels Revisited with our special guest on Monday, the happy hour on Tuesday, the Thursday night watch along for Mando, and of course tomorrow we have a new episode of Unifying Force. And we will see you next Saturday, a week from today, for the final news desk before Star Wars Celebration. So thank you guys. May the Force be with you, and safe travels to Celebration.
We're off.